what I mean, there are like two sections where I just for people, who are not familiar with these concepts, I'll just set some context in terms to explain these two. And then, I will, as I said, I will really show some examples with our low code platform in terms of how do we even achieve, this with some good examples and all that, right? So just some context, if you've been working on the data warehousing or business intelligence space, data analytics and all that, for some time, I think these are some familiar, problems, which especially in large organization space. I mean, analytics effort, despite being, despite all the large investments we made, both in technology, people, whatnot, right? I think the money spent, time spent, still, I think, the analytics effort, there is some discount in terms of, the ROI from these analytics effort. And the second one, I'm sure, people who have worked in the BI world would really be able to relate to this. There is just way too much of too many dashboards and reports and all that. I mean, I've been in companies, or rather, even in my, I mean, there will be like hundreds of these legacy reports. Each one of them, obviously, they do cater to a specific business function or a need, but at the same time, there are just way too many of them, and then way too many KPIs and dashboards, and then sometimes, I mean, even using the familiar applications like whether it is Power BI, Tableau, whatnot, or even handcrafted web applications, right? I think you ask them, I mean, the adoption may not be in proportion to the amount of money that is spent in building these dashboards and all that. And the third one, I mean, especially with every company becoming digital, and then the way in which we accumulate so much amount of data, metadata, or rather, what we call is the data glossary, the data catalog. I think all of that is also becoming a huge deal. I mean, there is always this conflict between, the business terms and then the technology terms. How do we make the KPIs or the outcomes, make it much relevant for the business folks and all that, right? And the last one, I mean, self-service BI, or rather, if I have to call it, um, the technology or the BI report, which is produced with very less technology team help, I mean, or rather taking it closer to the business users. I think that area, still I mean, it's still way too complicated. There is a lot of effort involved, even for us to either make changes or produce new metrics and dashboards and all that, right? So with that context, I mean, there are some statistics which very clearly says, I think, typical still, despite the investments in data warehousing, big data and analytics technologies, I think, information access is still, it's a pipe dream, or, it takes significant amount of time and effort, right? And also, I mean, I found this very interesting graphic in one of the HBR articles. I mean, it's like, so today, if we take our personal life, everything is kind of very momentary. You can hail a cab and do so many things, just from a smartphones. Why should getting access to, or rather, getting access to information for all our personal needs, for example, right? We rely on our search engines. We just go and ask a question, and then we are able to find that. Why shouldn't that be the similar experience, even for enterprise data? Why should application, or rather, getting access to information within a business context should be so difficult, right? I think, it still takes a lot of time and effort, right? So if we just really look at it, I mean, there are today's, if you take the modern data rich or a digital world, I think, every company is really accumulating very large amounts of data. I think, these are some of the realities. Users still struggle to get access to it, information. And then the number five is also very, very important. There are like just way too many tools. I mean, there is one for dashboarding, one for reporting, one for, data distribution, so many different things, right? And all of this definitely, are some very, very typical challenges, which we can very easily relate to. And if you really look at the modern day data needs, I think, it's more of, as I said, if not today, even the coming days. I mean, we're already talking about the influence of Chat GPT or generative AI, right? I think, it's able to or rather, generate answers for any of those prompts. I mean, you keep hearing about prompt engineering becoming the next big thing and all that. I mean, it's a different question. How trustworthy, or, I mean, of course, all these generative AI LLMs, they tend to hallucinate and all that. But still, the intent is more towards, can I really get quick access to information, right? I mean, especially from the very, very large volume of data companies are accumulating, right? Um, and it's almost like, I mean, can we try to replicate a search engine like experience, just like, how we would go and use that for any of our personal needs, right? And can we really use, I mean, even in terms of, so today, we look at a metric, we also, keep collaborating with others, in terms of, validating or, taking an action and all that, right?